So, welcome back to Servant Leadership Library, where we dive into the minds of those who built, led, and left a legacy. With your host, Nicholas Paulukow, CEO of One to One, a managed IT and security firm. Today, we have a guest who knows a thing or two about growing a business, making the big sale, and then trading boardroom for barn life. So, Dave Sagraves didn't just climb the MSP ladder. He bought the whole company in 2008, scaled it into one of the largest MSPs in the Southeast, and turned it into a regional powerhouse. As the head of sales, he led the charge from a small local shop to dominate force with multiple locations. Then in 2015, after 7 years of ownership, Dave did what most entrepreneurs dream of. He closed the deal, cashed out, and set his sights on different kinds of enterprise life, a life on the farm. So now calling Nashville home, Dave spends his time with his wife, Krista, and 3 kids, trading tech stacks for tree stands and sales calls for sunshine hunts. But don't let the quiet country life fool you. He's still got plenty of insights on growth, leadership, and the mindset it takes to build something great. So, Dave, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks, man. Great to see you and good to be a part of your podcast.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, kind of like tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now.
Yeah, first, very kind introduction. I'm a pretty simple guy. I grew up in Florida, Tennessee. I came to play soccer at a small NAIA school and met my wife here. So I'm now a
Really?
Tennessean. The whole journey of building an MSP, there's so much drama and consternation and frustration and highs and lows, but arguably one of the best journeys of my life. And the thing I think I'd want to highlight is the piece of working with people was both some of the toughest and most difficult interacting with humans. And then the piece of when it was great, it was great. And so, culture and core values were a big part of that. And so once I exited, that's really what I missed. Not only did I feel kind of dumb because I was investing a lot of time at the farm and spending a lot of time doing hobbies and hunting and doing different things, but I missed the intentional sharpening with other people. And so I'd love to chat more about that, but let me stop there. That's kind of the beginning of what we're up to today. So
I love it. You said a few things, and I'm going to derail for a second. What position in soccer? I have to know.
yeah, great. High school and club, I played up front or midfield. In
Okay.
college, they converted me to a back because I wasn't
Ah,
quite fast enough. So I had to
okay.
completely change skill sets and really work on that. But yeah, I had a blast doing that.
And that's amazing because you're kind of using the same terms in sports that relevant into leadership, right? You had to
Yeah.
readjust to where you sat, where you were in that part of a journey, which I think is pretty neat. And well, that's exciting. You have a big journey here, so we're excited to kind of get into it. And just from listening, right? Like you grew a business, and my uncle always said to me, who owned many businesses, he goes, "Hey Nick, business is really awesome as long as you don't have employees and clients." And I'm like, wait, well, how do you do this thing? He goes, yeah, that's not literal, so be careful about how fast you grow and how fast, what
Mm.
clients you take on, right? And so I'm sure you can attest to that. But you went from working in an MSP, buying it in 2008, and then you made the leap to kind of transition in from, a whole different aspect. Why did you sell the business? When did you kind of have that yearning? What was the intention?
Yeah, honestly, so it was my partner and I. We actually had a group of 6 partners to begin with. That
Okay.
we bought out the guy that kind of co-founded the business, and then over time, one partner and I bought everybody else out. At the
Okay.
end, it was really just a timing thing. We knew we had great enterprise value. We were one of the fastest growing MSPs in North America. We had a really great story to tell. And also, cybersecurity in 14 and 15 was starting to get
Mm,
to the precipice of this is a serious threat to the business model that
mm,
we were all adhering to. So I think those things were combined. I think
okay.
taking some risk off the table was part of it. So we did 2 years with a private equity backed, platform company,
Okay.
and then we exited again. And then I was finally done with that stage of my career. So
Wow.
oddly enough, the piece of getting back into coaching and getting into managed IT companies or MSPs started as soon as I sold the company the first time. A buddy called me and said, "Hey, would you coach my team?" And so I took a
Ah,
lunch break and I started coaching over lunch. And my wife could hear the difference in the tone in my voice when I was coaching his group because it was filled with joy and excitement and passion. And then working with a new company that had bought mine, it was kind of dismantling the baby one limb at a time. And
ah,
look, they were doing what needed to be done to get scale and to do the things we
right.
needed to build the business further. But it was emotionally very difficult for me. So that began what is now my consulting and coaching practice, which is called
Okay.
the Growth OS or the MSP Growth OS. So that's where we help
Okay.
accelerate revenue for MSPs. And that's largely a coaching, content, and training business. That's really how do we serve people and get them not where they necessarily think they should go, but where they need to go. And how do we aid them in that journey of growing revenue for their business?
Oh, that's amazing. And I love the word serve there, right? Like you're giving them kind of value. But I understand that your coaching's a little different, right? It's not consulting or anything. You're coaching them on how to develop it, build it, and create it and sustain it, right? That's pretty unique, relevant to others that work in our space or anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
I kudos to you on serving them in that manner. You talked about a lot about the growth that you had, right? Everybody, regardless of what business they're in, is trying to grow in some manner, right? And growth looks different for everyone. But what were maybe three things that made your growth more successful than what you see kind of peers today that you coach? Like what
Yeah.
was kind of that secret sauce?
Yeah, great question. First of all, there's a reason why the Bulls won six championships with Jordan. They had a really good player at an offensive and
Mm,
defensive position that was a
yeah.
leader and could take them to heights that maybe they couldn't have gotten to. They had a great coach in Phil. And so we had a great partnership. We had a great staff of people. I was the evangelist. And one of the things, so I think pillar number one for me would be in terms of growth is focusing on leading indicators for revenue growth, not
Mm,
lagging indicators. A lot of people, when they look at sales, they want to look at funnel and pipeline. And I'm like, that's really like a month to 3 months lagging indicator of success.
mm,
The leading indicator for success are new client engagements or first time appointments every
mm.
week. That's how
Right.
you can manage 3 months in advance how you're going to do from a revenue standpoint based on percentages. So that's number one. Leading
Mm,
indicators would be one thing. The second thing is simply discipline and grit. Everybody wants wild success and revenue growth and their business to be really big and give them all the things they want. But the reality is, very few want to apply the discipline and the
mm,
grit that it takes to get that outcome. And that is roll up your sleeves, hard work, early mornings, late evenings, perpetual self-control and discipline throughout your workday to focus on the right things. And for us, that was revenue growth consistently year over year. The last thing that I think about when I think of growth, I just think is where are we going to end up? So do we have the
mm,
right strategy or vision for where we're going? We
mm.
were very much a keep it simple, stupid group. We wanted to just build revenue every month for an entire year. And then we'd look back at the year and go, holy cow, look what we did. And then we'd go, what do we want to do next year? And we start thinking of all these crazy things. And it's like, no, we just want this 20-mile march or just consistency every
Yep.
month. If we do that simple input, we're going to get where we want to go without having this crazy vision and make radical sweeping changes in the business. We were just focused on consistent, repeatable inputs that allowed us to get what we wanted in the destination.
I love it. And there's so much into that to unpack. But I mean the simplicity, right? Everybody thinks this new great idea is going to solve their problem. Or
Mm.
I hear in the business that you're in from like sales, right? If I hire the best sales manager that did it, they're just going to do it great for us. And I always wonder like, well, I'll ask you, right? Like is that the right move? Because I would find that great salesperson, although that hire without understanding what their mission or vision or how they drive or their system, it seems like it would be very hard to hire this unicorn just to come in and not allow, the people that are there or the owners there to put a little bit more grit in. I think sometimes they're tired and think that this is like a quick win. Could you
Yeah.
speak on that a little bit? I mean,
Sure.
maybe I'm widely wrong there.
No, I think you're right on, buddy. The thing I think about is with revenue growth in an MSP, I liken it to my service desk. I was never going to
Mm,
outsource the service desk No offense to India or Indonesia or South America.
Right.
I wanted the people that touched my clients, which is my revenue and my lifeblood, to be my people that we could manage culture, joy in work, excitement in their days, all the things that we wanted to instill in our core values. And so the same with sales. I'm not outsourcing the key function of
Right.
growth to my business to someone else. So to hire a salesperson to say, hey, just go take care of this, that's outsourcing functionally. The other piece is very few salespeople or sales managers have the ability to think like the owner of an MSP. There's
Mhm.
three dynamic attributes of every owner. They can get in front of a client and sell them. They understand the technical, right? All the technical ins and outs of this business, and they have an executive presence. They run a payroll, they have benefits, they have state laws they have to adhere to, they have employment agreements, they have bonus programs. They have all these things they do in the people operations realm that allow them to go, no, I'm an owner of a business. I can talk to you about the trends that we're seeing right now from tariffs as they trickle down into small businesses or whatever it might be. Most salespeople only bring one of those, maybe one and a half. And so to expect them to go out and be able to
Right.
run a full cycle sales engagement it's not a unicorn. It's a pink unicorn that's 7 feet tall. It's asinine to think about. It's actually not realistic.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people building revenue, we have to go back to the basics and go, we have to silo functions and
Yeah.
hire people that can be great in that while we train them to be
That's
great
right.
at the next function. So does that help?
Yeah, that kind of goes along with your simplify, right? So
Yeah,
instead of trying to bite the whole elephant at one bite, right? You're simplifying it, right? Like get them really great at one function, then do another. I think a lot of people don't have patience for success in that manner.
yeah,
Or at least what I've seen for some of my peers, right? Like I want this instant gratification. And when in reality, it doesn't happen that way, right? Like
yeah,
you build it. What do they say, right? Build it and they will come, right?
right.
So if you have the foundational, I think is what I'm hearing from you, then you can hire into that. But I think a lot of people don't even know what they need. They just hire someone hoping that they can figure out what they need. That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, when your firm grew, right? So you mentioned culture, you mentioned growth, and in hyper growth, not everybody wants to grow at the same level. What are kind of some lessons learned, that happen as you grew or scaled your company?
Yeah. First of all, I want to hit on something that I'm very passionate about, which is core values. Okay,
Mm,
so it's the culture and lifeblood of a business. It's how we define the way we're going to live life. So at my IT company, our core values were wild: work smart, play hard, invest in the lives of
mm,
others, lead, don't follow, do what is right. So
mm.
at my MSP Growth OS business, we have a different acronym. It's SALT. It's servant leadership. It's authentic communication. Um, just had a brain fart. Thankfully, you can edit this out. L is servant leadership, authentic communication, loving work, and the
Mm.
best idea wins. We're toying around with an E so we can make it SALT E, and E being encouragement. Early and often, we
Ah,
encourage. And so, what I want to articulate through that is if people don't love work, okay, and that's a core value for me.
right,
My mindset is my job as the employer and the architect of the business is to create an environment where a person can bring their skills, apply them to a job, and be working in the thing that they're naturally gifted to do and trained to do. They're going to get joy and satisfaction from that. If I do that and I deploy them in a way where we're using their gifts, guess what they're going to be at the end of the day? They're going to be satisfied in their work. They're going to have
right.
days where they're pissed off because of clients or whatever, but they're going to
Yeah,
be more satisfied and have more joy in their work. I think that's a superpower. So that's one of the reasons why a core value for us is loving work, because we want to deploy every individual into a place where we're aligning their highest and best use of their skill set and the way they're created to apply it to a job. So to hire a salesperson and say, hey, what I want you to do is do a bunch of reports all day or be in a
yeah,
CRM 8 hours a day in front of a laptop, that's not using their highest and best gift. If I hire
right,
a salesperson, I want them out talking to people.
right.
I'm going to build systems that minimize the amount of administrative work because their superpower or HPU is to be in front of people, evangelizing, talking, sharing, trying to engage people to get them to take meetings with us to talk about IT. So,
I love that. The reason why I love that is I've screwed that up probably, I want to say 50 times, right? And in anything that you do, right? When you're scaling a business and you're like, man, that one person does three things, right? And I love hearing you over and over and over. I'm going to take this home, right? Like even your acronym, right? You're simplifying it. It's easy. You can remember it. You can take bites. And as a small business owner, and then as you scale, right, you have more potential resources. But if it's not clear, I guess is what I'm hearing from you, you're not going to really get anybody to buy in or be really excited about it. And I find that really intriguing, right? Because we hire, I have a gentleman right now that really should be in outside sales, and I need to get him there 100% of the time, not 50% of the time. I'm failing him. But how do we get all that other workload off? And the reality is do it pretty quickly because we use a tool called Culture Index. You can see right now I'm getting 50% utilization, and the person isn't as happy. So I feel that I'm failing that person and the organization because we need to get them out to where as God gift talents are. And I think that's well said in your part. And I think the hardest part is as a business owner when you're in it is to understand how to offload that relevant to dollars and cents, right?
Yes.
You're thinking about the now, not the investment, in that. So I love it. That's your concepts are so digestible, and I appreciate you sharing that. Let's kind of talk about leadership. You had mentioned a little bit ago that you were the head of sales. So I assume that meant that you owned revenue or you were driving revenue and expansion. So what strategies worked the best for you? Like, how did you build a team? How did you close those deals? Being the leader of revenue, but then scaling it seems like an audacious task.
Yeah. Hey, first, it was brutal. I mean, it was my partner Larry and I at the end. We had other great partners along the way, but one of the things that was really difficult is from a board standpoint, he and I made every decision. But functionally day to day, I was the VP of sales. And so I sat in that seat on a leadership team just like everybody else. So if you want to talk about servant leadership, I think, and I'm sure I did this wrong many a times, I'm sure I blew it in different meetings, but I tried to stay in my lane of this is my job and this is where we're going as it relates to sales. And then I would have meetings with my partner or with our exec team where I sat more as a board member and an owner of the business. So that's one thing, I think, just being intentional. The second thing is, I think, a growth and hiring salespeople. First, I was always trying to align to our core values. Invest in the lives of others is a selfless trait. Lead, don't follow is a bold thing in the world that we live in today. And then doing what is right really speaks to integrity. So if I'm going to hire a salesperson, I want them to have all of those attributes. And so honestly, I feel like it's kind of simple, stupid, but I just didn't hire liars that happen to be in sales. I would spend 6 to 8 hours interviewing people, getting to know them, understanding them personally, what drives them, what their motives are. And then I really didn't index that high on their sales skills. I indexed much higher on, are they trustworthy? Because I can train anybody to do these skills if they're willing to work. And so now I had the ability to coach and train inside that MSP, so I think it was easier. But the one thing is, as we did this ISP, Ideal Seller Profile, one of the primary two things that we indexed on was, do we trust that they will do what they say when we are not around? If that's a yes for me, they're 50% the way they're getting the job. Now we have to do a skills assessment and understand, do you have basic skills? And if you don't have those skills, how teachable and coachable are you? Because if you think you're great and you're not, we got a problem because you don't think you're going to need coaching and teaching. And so we created a culture in our business of everybody is a learner. Today, I'm doing a podcast for my group and a group of my owners that own all these MSPs. And all we're talking about is building a culture of practice in your MSP. Specifically in sales, you got to do a couple things. You got to create a vulnerable person. That's tough to do. That's a voluntary thing. Second thing, it's got to be safe. And then guess what? They need somebody to model it for them to show that it's okay to be vulnerable and fail fast, and then be eager to learn so you can try it again. And so that culture of practice was the other thing that we were intent on. How can we practice? I always liken this to the Patriots when they were on that run. Any of my brothers or sisters from the Northeast love the Pats. But I hated them because they were just simple and they just won a lot. And
Right.
but did they have all the I mean, Brady coming out of college was so below average. They took average to above average NFL athletes but applied them to an incredible system, and everybody bought in 100% to the system. So
Mm.
that's what we were trying to build, is a system that's defined, people that we can trust, willing to go to work every day, and then we were just going to go out and grind every day.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that kind of is like what Lencioni said, right? He
Mm,
said like humble, hungry, and smart, right?
yeah,
If I
yeah,
hire somebody that's humble and
yeah,
that they're hungry, the smart is kind of that grit, right?
yeah.
I love that. And that I think it really solidifies a lot of what many of us kind of do wrong, right? Like one of our core values is we before me. But I got an
Mm,
outside sales guy that's like I, right? Because like I want to succeed. But in reality, that could be conflict with we before me, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, even though they're really great at closing, does that really drive the culture? And we found that when we put our core values lower on the list, is generally where we stop scaling and we stop succeeding collectively because there was conflict. And you're somewhat recognizing that or stating that, live with the core values, train and coach. And I love that. That's
Love it,
phew,
bro.
man, that's amazing. Um, when you had a situation, kind of talking culture and people, and that didn't fit with kind of those values, how long did they live within your organization?
Yeah, I mean, my partner Larry and I would always joke, they stuck out like a sore thumb.
Mm,
What they valued, the way they talked, we would find that like the water cooler talk would pick up, gossip would increase in the office, slander
mm,
would increase. Our Friday cookouts that we would do, you'd see a subset of people that go sit like off by themselves, and that person tend to be the
mm,
ringleader. So yeah, I think it's very obvious. I think what's hard is I had somebody ask me, how can you be so bold about your core values and hire and fire against them? And I'm like,
yeah,
you can hire and fire if it is a part of who you are stated on the door of the company, which our
mhm,
core values were. We could fire if you violate a core value. So the challenge was, if they're doing their job effectively and we've got a mismatch in culture fit and core values, we're going to begin to just address that head on and be as blunt
right,
and loving as possible. This is what we observe. This could be way wrong. We want to remind you the core value is
right,
X. We wanted you to know that we are watching carefully to see that this is the way that you want to live life, and you want to live life here with us. If you don't, I mean, you're welcome at any time. We're a right to work state. You can come and go, but
right,
we want you here. We just want you to know this is the standard. And
right.
so we would begin a discussion like that, and then we would manage through that. So does that help?
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Manage the standard, right? In our world, we use a system called EOS, right? And we frequently had what are called productive jerks, right? They're the most high performing individuals, which looks great from a company standpoint, but they are the lowest performing in core values, right? And from my own personal experience, when you keep that around too long, I had an
Mm,
employee during a quarterly say to me, we rate our core values from every quarter. They have to rate themselves on the core values as well as the individual who works with them and the manager, and they get to rate, the employee gets to rate the manager on the core values. And the one time, one person that reported to me said, hey, I don't think we're leading with the moral compass. I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about? He goes, well, one of our core values is that it's we before me, and we're keeping this person. Why?
whoa,
Ouch.
love it.
Whoa. Game changer. And I said, well, we don't want the rest of the team to fail, because what if we remove them? We won't have an instant replacement. He goes, the rest of the team that cares is going to rally around it. So please do what our core values say. I was like, wow, game changer. Overnight, done.
Mm,
Um, it's hard, as you mentioned, right?
yeah,
It stinks, right? But owning a business or running one, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right?
that's right.
Yeah. Well, if we get into kind of running the business that you ran, right? You made a decision in the 2015 kind of to exit that business. And I'm sure that was difficult. And you mentioned that earlier, and now you're in kind of your new venture, which was kind of neat to hear that your wife kind of heard the passion and excitement. But man, going from an organization that you honed and things were humming to starting something again, tell us, like, I mean, that's got to be humbling too, right? Exciting, but humbling.
Yeah.
Like, give us a little understanding how that is, because it makes it you make it look easy, right? And that's the top of the iceberg, and then everything else is underneath it. So, you know, give us a little journey there.
Yeah, so we started in March of 2024, is when we started the Growth OS officially. My partner, Robert Gillette, co-founder, and I got involved. We hired somebody quickly from a marketing content standpoint.
Mm.
So there were three of us. In
Ah,
January and February, we hired two more. So we're at five. It has been a not a rude awakening, but a reminder of humble beginnings and
yeah.
just how much legwork goes in the early stage. One of our recent hires was a COO level individual. We hired way
Okay.
ahead of what we
Okay.
needed. One, I saw the demand in the industry. Two, I thought what was going to be our growth rate. As I'm having
Okay.
conversations with people, they're going, if you can grow my revenue, it's not a blank checkbook, but it's a we'll invest. And we
Right.
have some calculus now about basically if we can impact 4 deals a year for your MSP,
Mm,
you can subscribe for our entire system and get a return on
I
that
see.
money. And so those hires were key hires. I think the things I learned from part one and first entrepreneurial journey was people over process in the early stages. The
Mm,
right people, in my mind, are going to overcome our weaknesses in process. Good example is Sam, our COO, has come in and he is whipping us in shape from a process standpoint. And so we had no process. We were just trying to grow revenue to afford the ability to continue to scale and
right.
add the right
Right.
tools and do the things that we needed. So that's one thing. The second thing would be um, culture, 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 core values, core
Mm,
values, core values. Every person we've hired thus far is a complete lock in terms of values for our business.
gotcha.
And so that just makes less friction.
Mm,
And so as you look at a small business, there's so much. I got to depend on you. You got to depend on me. We got small circles, a lot of
right.
collaboration. And if I don't have somebody rowing the boat the same direction, they're going the opposite
Mm,
direction. That is going to substantially impact our work product.
mm. I love it. I love it. And it's from the perspective of kind of that grind, right? And now you have that COO. How does that change the culture, right? Because that COO is probably putting the brakes on a little bit, going, hey, Dave, we got to think about this. How does that change? Does it change how you all operate? Or, is it just a great, as you mentioned, kind of a great reminder, like, okay, we're trying to scale and grow, but we do need a little bit of process now, I guess.
Yeah. So it has definitely impacted us. I think a couple things. One, Sam lives our values. He's a servant leader, authentic communication. He loves the work he's getting to do right now. And the best idea wins from his
Uh,
perspective. He has no ego. He
yeah,
wants
that's
good
awesome.
outcomes for the business. The other thing is, I told the whole organization from an EOS standpoint, I am without a doubt the visionary. Sam is the integrator. We all work for Sam, me included. So in
Yeah.
my role of VP of training and VP of sales, which are the two buckets that I primarily play in, I work for him. He does my review. My review with him is going to be Friday for our quarterly review. And then I do his review as COO on Monday.
I love
And
it.
so I think just the aspect of somebody that substantial getting involved in the business early, yeah, it's not disruptive, but it's adding strain because there's additional
Right.
process, documentation, methods that can be repeated and we can scale on. But yet it's been a joy because he is rowing the same direction that we all are.
That's awesome. And it probably amplifies back the skills that you have. And now they're kind of taking over the things that maybe that you don't love to do and
Mhm.
amplifying them, which I think is really amazing. I think too many times as a business owner, we kind of, control that growth and are afraid to let go, right? Let go of the vine. I think it's
Yes.
just really key to if you want to live your best life and do it with people that you love to do, right? So I love it. I love it. So, all right, let's talk about hunting a little bit. You're an avid hunter. So I'm going to kind of compare this. Do you see any parallels between hunting and leadership in a business?
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, geez. I mean, first, the thing I think about is if I'm leading an organization and I'm looking at the people on my team, I assume certain things. Okay. Organizational health, cohesiveness of my management team. People are loving the work that they're doing and they're not bickering and griping all the time that they hate their job. Hunting is the same way. I'm going after a target. I've got to scout, which means I've got to know the
Mm,
terrain. I've got to know the paths that deer and turkey are running. I've got to know roughly where they're going to be. And then I've got to figure out how to get downwind, which is an exercise in studying, understanding environmental elements, understanding the people side of it, and then understanding the different kind of habitual paths that people tend to walk. And so, yeah, without a doubt, I would say assessing, evaluating, scouting. As a leader, I'm looking at the organization and I'm always trying to get input going, hey, how are things going? How's it going in this? How's
mm,
it? And that's my way of surveying or scouting and getting an idea of what's actually going on a couple layers below, because I
right,
can have owner rose-colored glasses that it's all great because I think
right.
we're growing and things are looking great from a P&L standpoint, but organizationally we could be rotting.
Oh, I love that. I love that, right? And that goes to the basics. There's nothing crazy or technical about that. You could have the coolest gear on, but if you've not done your homework, you're not winning that day, right? You come home,
Yes,
skunked. But as a fellow hunter myself, I always go out with the best laid plan, and doesn't mean I always get a yes every day, I guess. The same as in
so
sales,
true.
right?
Yep.
That's awesome. You know that you really what I really appreciate about you is you really simplify things very concisely, which makes it a lot easier to follow, which explains why you're such a good coach, right? Like you just
Mhm.
get right down to it, you set the pace and you explain it well. So thank you
Mhm.
for doing that. It's really
Yeah.
it's very motivating. It's really
Thanks,
really
Nicholas.
neat to see,
Yeah,
you know.
thank you.
Yeah. Now, kind of lesson learned back kind of from a MSP perspective. And now you're working with other MSPs. So I'm sure you get to see all of the same exciting things you saw before. But if you could give one piece of advice to MSP owners that are trying to scale their business every day, what would that be?
One piece of advice for MSP owners that are trying to scale. So here's what I would say. Evaluate your MSP. You are either an operationally driven MSP or you are a sales driven MSP.
Hmm.
If you want revenue growth, you've got to recalibrate the organization to rally around sales and sales growth. What most engineers and technicians want, they want networks that are not hard to integrate, they're easy to support, and users that call and just tell them they're great. And that's a dreamland. And
Yeah,
so
that's that purple unicorn you said, or your
that's
pink unicorn you
yeah,
said, right?
7 foot pink unicorn. So the reality is, what we get are clients that are really pissed off and frustrated, or they wouldn't change providers. And so we are handing them a hot mess. So if an engineer looks at that and goes, ah, more work, a crappy network, a needy client, or they go, ooh, this is my path to that promotion I want. Or this is
Mm,
my path to get that next cert that I've been looking for,
mm.
that I've been promised, because we're growing so much. We're now allocating money to individual coursework or self-study or professional development funds. If we align those things from a sales and an operations standpoint, guess what ops is going to do? Bring them in, baby. We'll take care of them. Right.
Yeah.
And then what sales does is they honor and respect that, hey, we want to have a tight ship, a good sales order intake form, good understanding of the business. We're not lying or misleading to try to get them in a round hole when they're a square prospect.
Yeah.
And so if we align those well, a sales driven company is going to take you to where you want to go from a revenue growth standpoint. So the one question or thing I would tell is, are you a growth driven or sales driven MSP, or are you an operationally driven one? 85% to 90% are operationally driven in the US today. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you're so true on that. If you're an organization that's listening that is in that organizational method, what do you think is normally the time frame because obviously listening to you, it's a culture change. It's a culture shift within an organization. How long do you normally see like it take to have to shift into that sales oriented, organization?
Yeah, so there's two things I want to address here. The first is I get a lot of MSP owners that come to me and say, "Hey, I want to grow revenue and I want to kill it in 2025." And I'm like, "Great, you should have started last summer." So
Yeah.
you've got to understand the reason why MSPs don't grow is because it takes an investment in sales
Oh yeah.
that is 6 to 12 to 18 months in advance of when the revenue is going to hit. Okay. The next thing is you've got to have enough revenue and enough profit in the business to reinvest into sales
Mhm.
because you can't cannibalize the service operation side of
That's
your
right.
business and the people that are working tickets for you or doing onboardings. So that's step number one is you've got to understand there's a lead time here for just revenue growth. And anybody that wants to grow in 2026 needs to be planning literally now
Yep.
for that spreadsheet, add the head count in Q2, 3, and 4 of this year, and then
Yep.
they're going to be producing in different quarters throughout 2026. So the next thing is how long does it take to turn a ship? I think it's probably a 2-year to 3-year turn. Okay.
Mm.
Typically it's the owner, they're the only person selling. So we've got to add salespeople, right? So we've got that ramp time. And then what we've got is we've got to begin. I would look at this like a task force, or I would look at this as a special interdepartmental meeting. It's not part of our
Right.
standard management team meeting. It's a
Right.
separate one. Leaders of operations and integration, leaders of sales, salesperson and the owner. And then we've got to start having a meeting cadence where once a month we get together. Here are the rules of engagement. We're going to have a subculture in our business between the two of us. We're going to
Right.
support you. You're going to support us. We're going to celebrate when we win a deal. You're going to celebrate that we win a deal. When you onboard a client and kick butt, we're going to celebrate the heck out of that. We're going to praise you. We're going to work together to get you good clients, not crappy clients where we lie on sales order forms to get them in here. And then you're going to honor that by working your butt off to onboard them and do everything we told them we were going to do in the onboarding process. If we build that subculture, guess what we've got? A foundation for a cohesive approach, not only in
Right.
front of our client, but as we onboard them into our service organization. So 2 to 3 years is my answer. A lot of hair on that. I think it takes a lot of intentional work,
Right.
just like sales and revenue growth. Intentional, direct effort is there's no marketing gimmick, there's no sales gimmick, there's no SEO money you can spend that's going to return that level of direct force effort on a problem.
Yeah. Oh, well said. And I think too many times people think that this is instantaneous, right? 90 days we tried something, so we're going to give up. And I think your simplicity, right, of simplifying, saying, listen, we're going to simplify and we're going to take baby steps to get there, right? I always use my first gun was a BB gun, right? I'm shooting a lot of BBs. And, thank goodness I'm not shooting a cannon because I don't know how to use that yet, right?
Right.
So that's great. That's great. So as we kind of work a little bit and talk about legacy, let's talk about legacy, servant leadership. That's kind of in your core values, right? So looking back, what does servant leadership mean to you? How did it shape the way that you kind of led your team, lead your businesses today?
Yeah. So a couple things that have influenced me over the years. So John Maxwell has a great series of books on leadership. Lencioni is
Oh
fantastic
yeah.
in the way that he talks about teams, and he weaves it in and out of his curriculum. Jim Collins' Good to Great was like the original one with his data that actually most leaders that are high-performing company CEOs are really simple, kind of behind the scenes. And then I had a guy tell me in my 20s that if you want to be a great employee, make your boss successful.
Ooh, that's
And then
good.
I had a guy in my 30s tell me if you want to be a great leader, help people get to where they want to go in their career, and you'll get everything you want along the way.
Mhm.
And so I started thinking about it. It's like this circle where we got arrows pointing, and if I invest in them and help get them where they want to go, and
That's
they
right.
invest in making me successful in my objectives, we're both going to get what we want and need. And so that's really where this idea of servant leadership, I think, formed out of. It also has influence in my personal life of like, this is all throughout the Bible. If you really believe,
Right.
by the way, you can strike all this if you want, but this is my personal belief. But if Jesus was who he said he was, okay,
That's right.
if he really was the Son of God and he was God that created the whole universe, and he came down and lived on earth and let himself be killed, the ultimate act of servant leadership.
That's right.
So that informs my faith and the way I live life personally. But as I look at business and I go, if I lay my life down for you and help you get where you want to go in your career, guess what I'm going to get? I'm probably going to get a happy employee. I'm probably going to get somebody that serves my clients well, and I'm probably going to derive the gross margin and all the metric KPIs that I need to run a good MSP. So it feels like a good trade. The key to that is alignment. So the other thing I think about is our fourth core value is the best idea wins. Okay. I said that and stated that as our core value because I'm the CEO of our business. Honestly, most of my ideas are dumb ideas. But I get to play this card as the owner, founder, and CEO where everybody will go, oh, it's a great idea, Dave. And I actually don't want that because at some point I'm going to hold the business back. And so from day one, Robert, who runs content and training, I've said, Robert, you're the guy. I trust you. I'm gonna support your leadership. Let's go. Bethany, who runs content and marketing and all of our video editing and everything. I'm like, Bethany, you're so much better at this than I am. I support you. Tell me where we're going here. I'm going to support your leadership here. Sam now is our COO. Sam, you're so gifted here, bro. Let me get out of the way. You tell me what I can do to serve you. And then guess what I'm getting? I'm getting 3 killer employees. Jenny's our EA as well. But all of them are working in their flow state. They feel empowered. They have more ownership over their area of the business, which means we're all acting and working like owners of the business. And all I have to do is not have any ego. That sounds like a pretty good recipe for a healthy culture. And so I love it. And so my vision for servant leadership in my business today is there will come a day where no one knows who I am. Nobody cares who I am. And by the way, the business today is built on my brand, Dave Sagraves, MSP Growth OS. They're buying me right now. My vision is one day, they don't need to know me. They don't want to know me. We have a system that's so good. We have training content that's so good. We have coaches that are so incredible. We're so good at recruiting salespeople that they go, we don't even know who Dave Sagraves is. That's success in my mind. And I think that's what a leader would want for an organization, or at least through my lens. It's I want to be irrelevant. I want people to be better and higher and more valued in the organization than me. I want their gifts to be deployed. And then I don't need to have any ego. I get to just cheer along the way and be super excited about a really cool business.
There's so much to unpack on that because I love it all, right? So I think Maxwell said, managing and building managers is one thing, but building leaders is another. And you kind of explain that, right? Building a leader is what you're trying to do. You're building other leaders, not just managers of managers, right? But I think somebody told me this the other day, and I can agree if they agree or disagree not to listen to it. But they said, if you want to succeed in business, all the answers are in the Bible. And I was like, okay, so kind of that's an area that I spend some time every day. And darn would you know, every time you read it, there you look at it and say, wow, okay, led with humility, right? Led with going first. Didn't choose the biggest, the baddest, and the brightest, but empowered them and came here to fulfill the laws that were here, not to change them, right? And so I just find every day that that single book's got a lot of answers if you open it up, right? But I love it. It's exuding the humbleness and that you exude, which probably makes you very successful. And I think others don't put enough attention to that, right? I got to be strong. I got to be the one that knows all the answers. So what, right? I don't want to be the one that has all the answers, right? Let's just do this together. And so kudos to you, and kudos to live open kind of with that mentality. Creates a lot of great followers and leaders.
Thanks. Hey, I want to say one thing and just make sure I don't make this sound like I got this all dialed in. I do this perfect every day. I think I screwed this up royally in my MSP. I think I had the heart. The heart was the same. But I was so driven by the outcomes of building a successful business. So I didn't have any life savings. The only asset I had was that business. And so I think I probably gripped the bat too tight.
Right.
on that first round. I think it's a little easier now because I've gone through an exit event. I've kind of gone through the retirement cycle and feeling kind of worthless and not
Yeah.
satisfied. And now it's like, man, I think God created work. I think work was created for a
Right.
purpose. And so
Right.
now, again, depending on your worldview, it doesn't matter, but either work is a noble thing or we shouldn't do it. So don't do it
Right.
halfway. At least be good at what your convictions are. If you
Mm,
think work's a crock of crap, don't work. If
right.
you are going to work, be excellent at the work that you do.
That's right.
And so I look and go, man, now I just go, I get to apply all these things. I want to do it better on this second turn. So,
Mm. I think when I hear you say that, it's kind of like what is most important. And maybe all of us, when growing a business, look at maybe revenue or growth as like an important thing because it's a measurement, right? And if you're a winner, you got to measure to something, right? But
yeah,
ultimately, I think what you're saying is that's great. That will come if you create the right values and live kind of in that core values and kind of a moral way and build that same team.
yeah,
I think all of us have had those humps and dumps. I
yeah,
say to myself that I do not want to be a servant to my work, but I want to serve.
mm,
And so that's my current goal, right?
mm,
Many times I feel a servant to what I'm doing.
yeah,
But am I really serving those that I'm here to serve? And
yeah,
I don't know. It's a question every day. And I think you're a testament of saying that too, right? Every day you're reflecting on, am I doing what I'm here to do? And if not,
yeah,
then stop doing it. And that's
yeah,
hard sometimes for people to understand that that's kind of a cliff, right?
right,
Like, what am I going to do?
yeah.
Ah, very inspiring, Dave. Um, Kind of as we wind down here. So, as we close our time today, what advice would you give those that are just trying to understand what like leading is, or being a servant leader, or trying to grow in a business? Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah.
What's the most important?
Best advice I got in my childhood from a business standpoint was from my dad. And he said, if you want to be wildly successful, hang out with people that are wildly successful. And so then my 20s, I went to guys very successful and I said, hey, what do? I want to grow. I want to be great at sales, all this stuff. He goes, find somebody 10 years older than you and ask them just to grab coffee every 2 weeks. So I
Mm,
literally did that throughout most of my 20s with a guy named Mark Morrell in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I just literally sat, I'd buy his coffee or his breakfast if he'd let me. Typically, he wouldn't let me because I was broke, but I just asked him questions. And I'm like, dude, tell me about this. Tell me, how do you do this? Where do you do that? How do you do that? All I did was take a position of a learner. It's amazing what you can get from an individual if your posture is being there to learn. When you come as a teacher or you have it all figured out, guess what? You're walled off to 80% of the learning that you could have access to. And so I look at that and go, man, if I want to be wildly successful in what I'm doing, doesn't matter what it is, I need a mentor. I need somebody smarter than me. I need somebody further down the road than me. And I need somebody I want my life to be modeled by. I always knew I didn't want to find a successful CEO that was super rich and lived this opulent lifestyle and was divorced 3 times and didn't know his kids. That's what I didn't want.
right.
Okay. I knew I wanted a guy that was a family guy that was core to me. I knew I wanted a guy that was in and around the sales profession. And then I wanted a guy that had high integrity because that's what I was trying to live my life by.
Yeah.
Very imperfectly, by the way. And yet I found that in this guy, Mark. And so I
Wow.
would say find a mentor, apply yourself to that mentor, and unlock your brain for learning. And you're going to be wildly successful.
Mm. I think that's great. And I think also too, what I think is missed today is everybody is like, well, I want instant gratification, when in
Yes.
reality is you got to invest in yourself to get the gain, right? And
Yeah.
I'm first generation to this country, right? So
Mm,
there wasn't any dollars, right? And Dad said, listen, we have two things in life: our faith and our ability to work hard.
mm,
So go apply both of them
mm.
and you will get what you need. And what a true statement across the board. And everybody's
Love
like,
it.
but I need all this money to start a company.
Don't.
I had zero. So, but if you have grit and ability and want, I think it's what you're saying. And you put yourself out there. It's uncomfortable, but growth happens with that uncomfortableness. Yeah.
Does. Well
Ah,
said.
awesome, Dave. Awesome. Well, folks, that's a wrap. We covered everything from scaling an MSP empire to trading sales quotas for, sunrise hunts. Dave took us on a wild ride from boardrooms to backwoods, providing that leadership isn't just about growing a business, but knowing when to pass the torch and start a new chapter. Dave, thanks for sharing your journey, your insights, and reminding us all that whether you're closing deals or closing gates on the farm, leadership is about vision, hard work, and maybe a little bit of patience. And to our listeners, if you took anything away or just one thing today, let it be this: build something great, lead with purpose, and when the time is right, don't be afraid to trade your laptop for a hunting rifle. Thanks for tuning in to Servant Leadership Library. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because great leadership stories like Dave's aren't meant to be passed away or passed down. See you the next time.